So let's light a candle for Marilyn, for her spirit to come through. God, I just pray that Marilyn's story would be honored and that her spirit would finally get a chance to rest, and that you would use me to tell the story of Marilyn so that we can all learn from her and take that with us into our future. In Jesus' name, amen. So, I've always been fascinated with Marilyn. She's like iconic and gorgeous, and I'm doing like the Marilyn hair right now with the crest wave and everything in honor of her. She's so inspiring. But every time I would like look at her photo, I would feel sadness, and it was almost like jealousy in a way, like, oh my God, 75 years later and she's still the most iconic star in Hollywood history, like immortalized. You know, she even got to die young, and at some point I thought that that was like glamorized, even though it's actually so tragic the more that I heard about it. But so yeah, I was like, she's immortalized in history. People still think about her, talk about her, like, you know, 100 years later. And at that time, she was it, you know. It's not like now where there's a million different people popping up every 5 seconds. Like, she was the star. Nobody compared. And Gentlemen Prefer Blondes is actually when she first came out as like a rising star and really kind of hit her fame mark at that point. But she only got paid $16,000 for that, while Jane Russell, on the other hand, who actually was like kind of in her shadow during, even though she was the more prominent star in that movie, she was obviously like not the lead. Jane Russell got $100,000, and then Marilyn only got $16,000. So Hollywood essentially like saved her from like working factory jobs, and you know, she started doing modeling, and then she got discovered pretty much, and they morphed her into Marilyn Monroe. However, it was like her lifeline, you know. I mean, if somebody came to you right now and was like, I'll give you all the Hollywood fame, but in exchange for your soul, like, and I'm being a little facetious here, but it was either that or the factory job. And like, she was willing to do anything, like so many of us are with social media and like that whole grind, to like be somebody and to be famous and to be adored and to be worshipped or like just idolized, and to be, you know, like Marilyn, she is the fantasy. She's the fantasy for men, and she's the fantasy for women. Women were jealous because they wanted to be her, and men wanted to be with her. And so women would keep watching and looking because it invoked something within them, which is actually the feeling of lust, like wanting, desiring what you don't have, what you can't have. Like, she was the fantasy. Hollywood made sure of that. They made sure that it was freaking like airtight, the fantasy and the illusion, just like they're doing with Sabrina Carpenter, just like all these things. It's still the same playbook that they're running. And because of that illusion of perfection, women were like, oh my God, like, I want to be her, but here's where I lack, and like my husband probably wants her, and I have to keep watching. But it's from a place of lack. Like, she's so gorgeous, but it's almost like eating cotton candy. It makes you feel good temporarily, like, or feel a feeling, but then it like you crash. So that's, you know, that same feeling that we feel when we watch social media, with people who we're jealous of, or like whatever, the comparison trap. It's like, oh my God, this person has the most perfect life. But it kind of makes me feel kind of shitty to watch it. And that's that same exact spirit that was operating back in the 1950s with Marilyn. And men wanted, so that was like women were jealous, you know, men wanted to be with her, but they were projecting their own fantasy onto her. She was the epitome of the male fantasy. The outfits, the hair, the body, the breathy voice, like the facial expressions, the dumb blonde persona, like everything was this male fantasy, you know, submissive, doesn't really question much, just goes along with the flow, and like that whole persona. She was the male fantasy, and men would project their fantasy onto her with like the studios. They would do that, and then men, if they were ever encountering her, they wanted Marilyn. Like they wanted the performance. What, you mean you're just gonna be like Norma Jeane over here? No, like I don't want sad, like depressed, insecure Norma Jeane. Like I want fucking hot Marilyn, you know? So that caused her to be like adored, but she was adored for the Marilyn persona. She wasn't adored for like broken Norma Jeane. And people projected their fantasies onto her. She became a projection screen because it was the image of her that they were selling. So people got to project on her whatever they wanted. It was like, oh my God, you're this fantasy, and she looked so perfect on the screen, like hours of hair and makeup, lighting, all these things, just like it is now. And then like when I would look at her and I would get sad, it's because I was projecting onto her all of my unfulfilled desires and dreams of like, oh my God, she made it. She made it. She was adored. She was desired. She was loved. And like, I want that. And I haven't fulfilled like what she got to fulfill, where it felt like she arrived and like I felt like I hadn't done that. And so because of that, I was sad and I was comparing myself, and so I would project all of my like unfulfilled dreams and desires onto her, and that's when I would look at her and feel sadness because it was bringing up all these things. But through that, I got to explore more about her and more about why I felt the way I felt, and started actually going down this rabbit hole of learning more about her and everything. And so I also realized, like, looking at those pictures, looking at her on the silver screen and feeling this longing of this like lust that satisfies temporarily, but it actually leaves you wanting more or feeling depressed or discouraged. Same with the comparison trap on Instagram. I actually realized that like I was feeling Marilyn or Norma Jeane's like spirit through the photos of like her longing and her willingness to just do anything and everything, like just to be adored and to be loved. And she's like, her mantra was, I will be whatever you need me to be, just please love me. And so she perfected the walk, the talk, the hair. I mean, we're talking like hours and like in front of the mirror, perfecting this persona and this performance. Like her snatched waist, like that was a freaking corset. Like I was thinking, oh my God, this woman has the best body ever. Everything was down to the detail, like perfected. The hair, the this, the that, all to incite that reaction from us, and like the fact that sex sells. And it was the thing, the hook that drew us in. But then behind that, you feel the spirit and the energy of it. And when it's God's spirit, it leaves you feeling full and like happy and inspired, and it doesn't leave you feeling drained and wanting more. And that was like the same thing that they're selling us through Marilyn. They sold Marilyn the same bag of goods, like bad, spoiled, whatever. And it's this lie that we're still believing to this day. And it's, if I can just be perfect enough, if I can just do this, perfect this enough, then I'll finally be desired and loved, and I'll finally feel whole, and I'll finally be okay. And back then it was the studios that were the slave drivers, but now, yes, it's still that. Hence, like I said, Sabrina Carpenter, like, she's probably exhausted touring, and then now she has this new album coming out, Man's Best Friend, but it's her like on all fours, and like the Rolling Stone cover that she just did with like barely half naked, and like that's all well and good and fine and sexy, but at the same time she just came out with that other album. Now they have to up the ante to keep her still relevant because that's their cash cow, and she's probably freaking exhausted, like going on tours and over and over and over, but like the machine is already running and she has no choice. Unless she wants to back out of these commitments and let her fans down. Like, she knew what she signed up for, but at this point she's not making any of her own decisions, and they're using the same things, like the hypersexualization and like just all these different things, because again, sex sells, but like the machine has pretty much taken away her autonomy at this point, and you can kind of just see like the progression. And so that's with the studios, so that's still going on, but we have now created our own little mini studios where we compartmentalize our lives and try to like get everything perfect and do these filming and do all these things to show these curated versions of our lives that's not reality, in order to feel that same feeling, the fame that we think is going to feed our soul. But until we've healed the Norma Jeane inside, and until we've healed that little girl, it's going to be that flash of validation that is momentarily satisfying, only for it to fizzle out and there to be the emptiness remaining. And so it's so important, and I'm not saying let it, like, you're going to be perfect, but I'm just saying God might want to take some of us into like the wilderness to strip away the performance and strip away the validation seeking and find that in his presence, so that then when we are released into like the spotlight or whatever, it doesn't consume us to where we lose that inner compass of like who we are and just end up becoming whatever someone wants us to be, which was what happened in Marilyn's case. That was a case of like survival. She was trying to literally survive in a male-dominated industry, and it would have been really, really hard not to succumb, and she didn't realize what was happening until it was too late, that they were pumping her and using her like for all she was worth and for every last drop of relevance, until she was exhausted. I mean, like pills to be up, pills to go to sleep, pills on pills on pills, and she didn't have that inner knowing or compass or backbone of like, she didn't heal the inner Norma Jeane. And because of that, she used the Marilyn performance to get the validation, and then people only wanted her for Marilyn, and she had to be on all the time to get the validation, to get the adoration, to get the hit of the dopamine of being adored like that. She had to perform Marilyn. And instead of integrating Marilyn with Norma Jeane and becoming one whole person, because she never truly felt loved as Norma Jeane, the more she relied on Marilyn for the performance, the more that Norma Jeane like just faded into the background and became this fragment. She became a fragmented self. She wasn't whole. She became the real her that was unloved, Norma Jeane, and she became Marilyn. And she was the one compartmentalizing those two in her own mind, because she never healed Norma Jeane. And so let God heal Norma Jeane. And then it's not that he doesn't want you to do the hair and the fun and the cute, but it's just like, from what spirit are you doing it from? Like a healed place or a desperation need in order to feel okay about yourself? And her end of her life was like, it showed what that did to her, because she was 36 at this point. She was like getting older. She was becoming more of a liability. Her face, she was more tired. She was like missing sets. She got fired from a job, and one of her last jobs, and then they were probably going to rehire her. But like, it got to her. And some of her last photos, it's like you can just see the regular old girl Norma Jeane, like not posing right, like weird poses, and just kind of probably fucked up on drugs, to be honest, but like not perfect at all, not perfect angles, nothing. So it's like, wow, the vision that they were selling us was again so airtight of this perfection, but really behind that, not even Marilyn Monroe could keep up with Marilyn Monroe's persona. Not even her herself could keep up with that. And so I feel like her spirit, she was getting ready to, she had like this little red diary that she was getting ready, like she had written down all these secrets of, because she was having affairs with like the Kennedys and stuff like that. And she was getting frustrated because like she would call the White House constantly, but JFK was like, I'm with Jackie, like leave me the fuck alone. And then she was getting more frantic, and so she was about to like come out with all these secrets about like the mob and the mafia and like RFK and JFK and like all these things. And she was about to come out about like Hollywood and how she felt exploited and all these things. And she became a liability, like for political reasons at that point. That red diary is still never found. Conveniently, she passed away due to an overdose, but like there was rumors that this whole stage was set, and there was like ridiculous amounts of barbiturate type substances in her blood, like 10 times that. I mean, it was just super sketchy. And so she was immortalized because she died young, and she was immortalized as an icon. However, I feel like the reason that we are haunted by her 75, 100 years later is because of how beautiful, gorgeous, amazing, fantastic she was, of course, but also I think that that longing, when you look at a photo of her, is an invitation to ask, why? Why do I feel that longing? What is it inviting me to discover about myself, about Marilyn? And my prayer is that by retelling her story of what she was about to start to say before she died, she was about to potentially start to like get her bearings to be able to start telling the truth, but she wasn't given that opportunity, or to like realize that she gave her all, she gave everything to be what she thought they wanted her to be. And it worked for a while. She got validation for a while, but it wasn't sustainable. It wasn't lasting. It actually tore up, like chewed her up and spit her out. And you can see the evidence of it. And when she first started acting in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and everything, and like she was just fucking gorgeous. And then like those, like I said, those final days and those final photos and things like that is just, you can see the progression. And so for her to come out and say those things but she was never given the chance. It's my hope that when you look at Marilyn and you look at photos of Marilyn now, that potentially telling her story can change the way that people view her. And if I can leave you with one message, it's to heal the Norma Jeane inside before going off and trying to like become the Marilyn. And it's the lie that they try to sell, saying that if you can just be this perfect version, then you'll finally be loved. But Marilyn, the reason I feel like she was immortalized is because she was the epitome of that, and the proof all in one that it doesn't work, that it leads to death. And we are all trying with social media, a lot of people are running on the same hamster wheel that she died on, but they are doing it to themselves. Like, instead of having a studio manager say, okay, perfect this, perfect that, we're doing that to ourselves now. And that's the even more tragic part, is because we've bought into the lie and we're our own slave drivers now. And so I just think that people are waking up, but still, it's just important to notice the spirit behind the performance. What does it make you feel? Does it make you feel like shit after? Or does it make you feel inspired? And that's usually how you can tell if it's the spirit of God or not. And then also just ask yourself, like, what spirit do you want to be giving out and dealing out to others? One like Marilyn's unhealed spirit, or one like, you know, maybe her spirit, once it's been given a chance to finally rest and to carry the torch forward of what she wishes that she would have done or could tell people. So it's my hopes that that I just did that right now. So